Yeah, why not? O-R-A-N-G-E. Oh, hi guys. Olish, good heavens, what are you doing up so late? You should be in bed. Nice of you all to show up. I guess there must be some kind of Uncle Kage streaming thing here because I didn't announce it, but whatever the hell. Let's see. I just got a ping. Probably somebody said, "Dude, do you know you're streaming?" Yes, I know I'm streaming. That's the whole point. There we go. First off, thank you all for taking time out of your evening to join me here tonight. Tonight is a solemn evening for me. There's an observance that I have been observing. I guess, yes, you observe observances. For the past 22 years on this very evening, I always tell people this is the one night of the year that I allow myself hard alcohol. And I've got some of that hard alcohol right here. You see, 22 years ago this very day, just about this time of night, in fact, I walked into my local bar, stunned, shell-shocked, and I said to the bartender, "I am a pissed-off American and I need something strong. Please mix up the strongest screwdriver you think you can fix." So the bar person did. Well, that's been my annual observance. So we take equal parts of absolute Mandarin, which is what was poured that night at the Flying Pig in Malvern, Pennsylvania. Oh, that's not going to be a lot, is it? Well, okay, maybe it'll look better once we add the orange juice. You see, it's rich in vitamin C with no added sugar, so that, you see, that will keep down the amount of calories. There we go. Now, I would have just gone ahead and got myself this stuff and enjoyed my evening on my own, but I remembered that I kind of made a promise to myself not to drink alone. I'm here alone in my house, but if you all are watching me on this computing machine of yours, then I'm not really alone, am I? There we go. So, equal quantities. Give stir. Yeah, there's still so much room in the glass, though. I'll tell you what, we'll add some ice. Okay, I got some ice here. We'll just add that in. Except the ice seems to have all melded together here. There we go. The idea tonight, of course, is not to get blitzed drunk. The idea tonight is to, well, is to conduct a ritual. Human beings are odd creatures. We love our rituals. We have our little things that we do, our superstitions, our little chants that we offer to invisible beings, some of us. But this is my ritual. I'll take my hat off for this one. Because as I said, 22 years ago, I didn't know what else to do. This got me through that evening. And, well, it'll get me through this evening. What are folks saying? Oh, Colonel, hello. Well, Colonel, if a dream coming true was just to meet me at EF, that was easy. If that's all it takes to make your dream come true, then, dude, I didn't have to put on any work at all, so thank you very much. Let the ice do its job. Yeah. I'm not accustomed to mixed beverages, with the exception of caipirinhas, but that itself was something of an anomaly, since there was nothing else to drink down in South America. But in general, I do stick to wine, but tonight's the night that I let myself have a bit more. So, here's to Riscorla and Beamer and the nearly 3,000 others we lost 22 years ago today. I hope this is coming through all right. I can see myself over here, and apparently the lag is, like, totally nuts. But what do you want? You ain't paying for this stream, neither am I. Good shit. And being a proper American, you see, there's another little ritual that Americans like to indulge in, is when emotions run high, one's adrenaline is pumping, there's not enough serotonin flowing around, the endorphins are not kicking in. I think someone said, oh boy, I'll paraphrase. A wise person once said, in times like this, an Italian reaches for the Bible, the Frenchman reaches for a woman, an American reaches for chocolate cake. And that's what I got right now. So, what better flavor combination than dark chocolate and alcoholic orange juice? That is good shit. By the way, those of you who are regulars on the wine stream, the next wine stream is not going to be until, where the hell is that calendar thing? The 23rd. This one is impromptu. I'm just doing it because why the hell not? Oh, Skylar says that cake looks good. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me see if the camera can pick up the details of this amazing cake porn that I'm offering to you tonight. It's like 750 calories worth of cake, but you know what? I don't freaking care. I can feel the endorphins rushing to my skull. I guess that's where endorphins go. Autofox. Oh, you dirty, dirty confection. Yes, indeed. So once again, this is not really a wine stream per se. This is a remembrance stream, simply because it is not good form for one to drink by oneself. Who is sending me stuff on the telegraphs? Oh, uh-oh. Oh, dear. I just got a text from my lovely neighbor Bea. She says, if you're not tired, could you please pass me some jumper cables tonight or tomorrow morning? I'll tell you what. Let's have a bunch of these and try to jumpstart a car. I am all for it. I can bring some down later. Later tonight. How late will you be up? This is my mother's neighbor, Senora Bea. She helps take very, very good care of my mom. She's part of my mom's posse of hooligan friends. She comes from Chihuahua in Mexico. And there is nothing I would not do for her. So if she wants jumper cables, she gets jumper cables. But the cake comes first. Absolutely good shit. Mio. Yes, couldn't make it this time to you. I'm sorry you didn't make it, Mio. You missed a rollicking good time. Here's an interesting quote from Olish. Well, I'm from Bremen myself and thus dislike Hamburg. I very much hope you can make Hamburg our new home. So, explain this to me, Olish. I don't understand. Is there a rivalry between Hamburg and Bremen? Bremen, sorry, is it like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia? Christopher Lyon roars, do not drive there. Okay, Christopher. You're Chris. May I call you Chris? Okay, Chris. Bea lives about 300 yards down the road. I might be American, but I am not so American that I'm going to have to drive 300 yards to my neighbor's house. I can walk. Of course, that itself might be a matter of opinion after a few of these, but we shall see. And positive Tiger Game of Points. Yes, what a sweet exchange of jumper cables and cake. Jumper cake pulls, I guess. And, I originally was going to get just a little piece of cake, but I didn't. Nothing philosophical, nothing deep or intense about that statement. It's just, I wanted a fucking big piece of cake, so I got a fucking big piece of cake. Here it is. Oh, Ken Warner said, hello, Ken, you want some cake? Here's some cake pouring for you. Mio says, what am I drinking tonight? I'm going to put something maybe in the chat, and I'll pin it. Tonight is an observance of a ritual that I have been observing on this night since 2001. That is why we are here. Yes. So for those of you just arriving, and I'm not going to get on your butt for being late, because there really is no late, because this wasn't scheduled or anything silly like that. This was just me. My ice is melting. Wanting company. 22 years ago this night, I went into the local bar, and I needed a good strong drink. At the time, I rather liked the Screwdriver, the vodka orange. And I told the bartender, I need you to whip up the strongest screwdriver you're allowed to make. Please use Absolute Mandarin, if you would. And the bartender did. And I sat in the bar and we watched the news, what little there was that night, the follow-up. But it helped not only to have the anesthetic effect of the alcohol, but just to be with a bunch of other people who, like me, were shocked, were upset, were lost, were in pain, were terrified, and needed the company of others in the same condition. Oh, Abel Gasca had met me at Anthicon this year, and it was a pleasure for me too. And a thank you from us military furs, and a thank you from me to the military furs. I know what you folk do. I come from a very, very long line of folks who served in the military in wars that happened long before I was born. I have not served myself. I served my country in other ways. But those folk who fought in the trenches of World War I, yes, I knew them, some of them, who fought on the islands in World War II. Anytime I met someone from that generation, I would thank them profusely. And it's more than just thank you for your service. Coming from a young man, as I was, a child really, the thanks that I gave them was usually phrased in the form something similar to, you went through hell so I wouldn't have to. So thank you for that. Positive Tiger Gamers. Well, I forgot my new blanket. Gummibjorn gave this to me at your reference. It's the artwork of a Lecter Fencer. I'll go more into this during the actual stream. But I wanted to have something behind me that would be nice color scheme, and the orange and the yellow. I wanted it. Actually, that's a lie. I was terrified of getting chocolate icing on my brand new sofa. That's why the blanket is here, because I can wash the blanket, I can't wash the sofa. I'll introduce the blanket on the next stream. Oh, this is good shit. Some years ago, I was at an airport. That should not surprise anybody. I go to airports a lot. My flight was delayed. That should also not surprise anyone. And they had a bookstore. I thought, well, I shall buy a book. Now, for your young kids, you may not know what that is. I always refer to it as like an analog Kindle. And I was shopping around for one of these books, as we call them. And there was a book on the shelf called Flags of Our Fathers. The story, or I should say, the backstory of the men who raised the American flag over Iwo Jima, Mount Suribachi, I believe it was called. And what happened to these fellas for the rest of their service, for the rest of their lives? For some of them, that didn't last long. And I bought this book thinking, I shall read it, and I shall enjoy it, and I shall be educated. And when I went back to the gate on my way, I happened to pass a little old man. And when I say little old man, I mean a bent, very, very elderly fellow in a wheelchair. But he had on a hat that prominently said Iwo Jima Survivor. And I would zoop that. I went right up to him, and he was a very, very small fellow, so I knelt down next to him, and I pointed out his hat, and I indicated my admiration, and I asked him if he had time, would he be willing to tell his story? Now, I need to tell you what transpired in the next 3 seconds. I said to him, would you be willing to tell your story? And a look came over his face, a look that I could not describe to you in 100 years. But that expression on his face, when I said to him, would you be willing to tell your story, he started to reach back into his memories. And the expression on his face, just in those few seconds, told me everything I needed to know. And I said, well, that's okay. I don't want to take up your time. Thank you very much for what you've been through. And the funny thing is, I felt I really didn't need to read that book that I bought, because I had gotten the entire story just in the 2 to 3 seconds of looking in that old veteran's eyes when he started to remember. I did eventually read the book. Very good book. Controversial, but then what good book isn't? Oh, James Rook. Hi from the UK. We got people here from Germany, from the UK. For Christ's sake, it's a school night. You kids should be in bed. I picked up the wrong glass. I'm sorry. That was the glass that had the ice in it. Good shit. Very smooth. I don't recommend inhaling it. The oxygen content is particularly low. It will not support life. We tend to think of the Battle of Iwo Jima from movies that John Wayne made. You know, the sands of Iwo Jima, and heroism, and rah-rah, and raise the flag, and yay. They do tend to gloss over what an absolute living nightmarish hell it was for the men on both sides. All because their commanders told them they had to. It's a funny thing about war. You get some fellow with an idea in his head. He don't want to do the dirty work himself. He finds a bunch of young guys and girls these days, and he tells them, You need to go out and do horrible things because your country needs you to, your God needs you to. It's hardly ever true. Matter of fact, I would dare say it's never true. Country doesn't need shit. Country's doing just fine. God doesn't need shit. Look at all the money he's got. Every Sunday morning, people putting their nickels into the collection plate. He doesn't need shit. But the old guy, he's got his agenda. He tells all the young fellas, you gotta go do this. You gotta go fight. You gotta go die. It'll be great and glorious to die for your country. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. So, a fellow with an agenda convinced a bunch of young guys 22 years ago to hijack a bunch of planes and fly them into targets, skyscrapers, political targets, economic targets here in the United States. And what did he expect to gain? What did he want to get from it? Did he think we were going to wring our hands and roll over and say, oh, please don't hurt us anymore? That's not what this country does. In fact, that's not what any country does. You think Ukraine is going to roll over and say, don't hurt us anymore? Hell no, they're not going to. We make gentle fun of France. Oh, France surrendered in World War II. Yeah, they did. But if you look at the sheer volume of horrific losses that they were suffering, they probably made a good decision. So, here's the moral of the story. If some old guy comes to you and says, you need to do this because God says it's right, or you need to do this because your country needs you to do it, or even, we need these signs put up outside of the fursuit lounge. Well, maybe not the latter. That one actually has some utility. But any other old guy telling you to do shit, I'm not going to say right off the tell him to go, screw himself, but stop to think for a minute. Who's he speaking for? Is he speaking for God? Boy, that's pretty highfalutin, isn't it? I'm speaking for God. Yeah, who the hell do you think you are? Is he speaking for the country? Who is the country? I'll quote Mark Twain. Who is the country? Who is the country? Is it the government? In a republic, the government is a servant to the people, and a temporary one at that. You should live your life in such a fashion that you have no regrets. I have already failed. And that I regret that I only purchased one piece of chocolate cake for this evening. I suppose I could lick the icing out of this, but that would horrify a good portion of the viewers and turn the rest on. I don't care to do either tonight. So I'll just set this down and return to my morbid drink. And once again, for those of you who got this notice out of the blue, what the hell, Uncle Kage is streaming. Why the hell is he streaming? He's not supposed to be streaming. He's supposed to be in bed, like all decent Americans should be in bed right now. You goddamn kids with your rock and roll music, turn that down. This is my ritual. And as I said when I started this whole thing, human beings love rituals. I gave up drinking hard liquor back around the year 2000 because reasons. And since then I've stuck to wine. But on that warm September evening in 2001, when I drove home from work and I was listening to the news reports that they had lost all contact with the first responders who had gone into the towers, and I stopped at a red light and just burst into tears. Because you see, I was in emergency services at the time. It's bad enough when you lose one, maybe two firefighters, but 300 of them all at once, my God. I was scared because none of us knew when this was going to end. I was upset. I was angry. I was in shock. I walked down to my neighborhood bar, the Flying Pig in Malvern, Pennsylvania, and I said to the bar person, I'm a pissed off American. I need you to whip up the strongest screwdriver you can make. And the bar person did, using absolute Mandarin. And I hope I can find the lid for it because I don't see it here. Pardon me. And orange juice, of course. Was I drinking a toast? Was I drinking to forget? I think it was both. I was looking for an anesthetic. The chemical anesthetic in the glass was welcome, but a much more welcome balm, a much more necessary nepenthe, was the company of a bunch of other folks who felt exactly as I did. And we all sat. The bar was silent. I don't think anybody said a word as we watched the news. We watched then President Bush, whom I used to think was the worst president we could ever have. I watched him make his chest-thumping, fire and brimstone speeches. The next day I watched Congress gather on the steps to sing, God bless America. Look at us. Look at how unified we are. Then they went inside and voted on a bunch of bills to strip us of so many of our rights in the name of safety and security. Someone look it up. Somebody look this up for me because I don't feel like looking it up. Was it Benjamin Franklin or was it somebody else who said, what was it? Those who trade liberty for security deserve neither. I believe that's correct. Yappy is here. Hello, Yappy. I thought I heard that familiar yip. And Miu. Can I call you Miu? Great. Miu says, yes, it was Franklin. That's Dr. Franklin to you and I. Interesting man, Dr. Franklin. Ben Franklin to his friends. Hope he doesn't mind me calling him Ben. If he doesn't mind me calling him Ben, maybe I can call him Benny. Do you think his friends called him Benny? Hey, Benny! Yeah, he could have been a Benny. Ben Franklin was a brilliant natural philosopher, an inventor, a dreamer, a diplomat, a man of many, many talents. He was also a lecherous old motherfucker. My God, there has never been a bigger horn dog in American history than Ben Franklin. If it moved, he would fuck it. I'm serious. He would fuck anything that moved. When he went out with the kite and the key to examine the lightning, he wasn't looking for electricity. He wanted to fuck the lightning. That's true. That is a historic fact. He was looking to fuck the lightning. And it was only incidental that he realized it was electricity. That's when he said, maybe I shouldn't fuck with that. See what I did there? And Chen Long says, I would never let Ben Franklin anywhere near me. You will think differently of Ben Franklin if you watch the Drunk Histories on YouTube. Who better to play Ben Franklin than Jack Black? They got Jack Black to play Ben Franklin, and he did a very, very good job. Franklin once wrote to a friend. Now, this one I will look up. Because it is a wonderful quote, and he sent a letter. Oh dear. Okay, don't ever rule 34 Ben Franklin, really. Boy, that was something that I really did not to see tonight. I didn't need to see, that is. Oh, dear me. Yeah, I'm looking at Benjamin Franklin on French women. Why did I get Ben Franklin Rule 34? Oh, my. Well, I cannot find the actual quote, so I shall have to paraphrase. And as I am a learned natural philosopher myself, you shall simply have to take my word for it. Franklin wrote in a letter to a friend about France, the hospitality of the French is without comparison. If they should find that one enjoys sweets, there will be sweets. If they should find that one enjoys wine, one shall have wine in abundance. If they should find that one is fond of of tobacco, tobacco shall be provided endlessly. It so happens that I enjoy women. And that was where he ended his letter. Back at Anthrocon 2001, I believe it was. just a few months before the events that precipitated this observance tonight. Apricon 2001, and you can correct me on the year. As a matter of fact, don't. Don't correct me. Screw you. We were having a theme of history. And we invited... it was invention. That was our year. Invention it was. That would have made it 2002. Okay? My mistake. It was 2002. The theme was invention. We were still in Philadelphia. Who should we invite to join us but Dr. Benjamin Franklin himself? At the time, Philadelphia had its own official Ben Franklin. This gentleman, that was his career. He served as Ben Franklin for the city of Philadelphia. And Bungie was there. Bungie remembers him. We invited him, and he came out in his Ben Franklin outfit, and he was rather mystified by this furry convention, but he helped judge our, we had an invention contest. Furries, invent something. There were Paul sneakers, there were various arm slings for puppeteers. There were actually some very, very nice inventions. Yappy would remember. I think he's the one who submitted the sling for a puppet. And Dr. Franklin, when he was not on stage doing things for us, he was free to wander the convention. He went to the dealer's room. And he went up to an artist's table. One of those artists. I think it might have been Gideon, as a matter of fact. And he started looking through the prints. And I wasn't there, but my understanding of the exchange was that Dr. Franklin, with his little glasses down his nose, was going through the prints, and he said, "Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, dear." And the artist leaned across the table and said, "Don't give me that. I've read about you." And our guest paused and said, "Yeah, okay, you got me there," and moved on. That gentleman passed away not too many years ago, and damn my eyes. Yes, I could not remember his name, but Miu, thank you very much. It was Mr. Ralph Archibald. Absolutely capital fellow. Very, very delightful man. I don't know if it was indeed Ralph. I don't know if Philly has a new Ben Franklin, but the thing is, he was so good at it. I don't know if they possibly could get another. I'm going to excuse myself for a moment. I think I need to refresh my glass, but I'm going to need more ice. So, talk among yourselves. I shall be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, as we used to say in the old days. Together. Sorry, I'm back. Got my ice. Was thinking about something. Complete non sequitur. Very, very complete non sequitur. Another 200 milliliters, Mr. Bartender. Thank you very much. Do you suppose somewhere in the celestial ether, there's a bet going on between Allah and God, or his prophets, Yeshua ben Yosef and Muhammad. Do you suppose there's a bet going on? Hey, which one of us has the more fucked up followers? I have my opinions, but I'll keep them to myself, at least for the next 30 seconds, until I get some more of this crap in me. Actually, no. I'll give you my opinion. I think it's a tie. It is a dead heat right now between them. Because both religions go to great lengths to try to teach people how wonderful it would be if we were all nice to each other. Oh, Skylar used to be an ice chewer. You regret it now. Skylar, this is America. You can do anything you want. Anybody tells you not to chew ice, tell them to go to hell. Let's see. And yes, indeed. We are pointing out that, to this audience, the apex being, God, Allah, Yahweh, Ta'aroa, Benny. They're all different names for the ostensibly the same entity. But the religions don't see it that way. They've separated them out. No. Ours named this, that's the one. But ours named this, that's the one. Same guy, same fella. That's the funny thing with religion. And here's where I risk getting canceled. But you know what, at my age, I don't goddamn care. We make fun of people who hear voices. We tend to kind of cross the street when we see somebody babbling this loud, weird incantation on the streets. We call the police if somebody is out on the sidewalk speaking in tongues. But if it's in a church, that somehow makes it acceptable. You go into this building, and then it's okay to believe in ghosts. Then it's okay to think that there are, forces out there controlling you, and you hear voices, and the voices tell you to do things. The voices tell you to go out and kill your neighbor. The voices tell you that you have to hate this guy. The voices tell you that this is the way the world should be, but only without that one over there. Outside the walls of the church, it's a crime. Inside the walls of the church, it's religion, and they say we must respect it. I think we need to tear those walls down, if you ask me. Because it's within the walls of that church that those young men were convinced that they would go to heaven and have their 39 virgins, or whatever the hell it is, if they just fly these planes into these towers. It was within the walls of that church that young men were sent to the Holy Land to liberate it from the bad people who lived there. It would be interesting to try to add up the number of lives that have been lost and the number of people that have been plunged into misery in the name of God. And I use God with a small g because, as we have stated, he's got many, many, many names out there. But every single one of those gods starts out the lesson with, you should be nice to your neighbor. My, what a screwed up culture we have become. And before I get too maudlin, Pluto the dog jumps in and says, did you get another couch? Thank you for changing the time. I did, as a matter of fact, Pluto. This is a brand new couch. It does not have the alkali divot in it, but it may, because we are very much hoping to have alkali on the next wine stream, which will be the 23rd of September. Will Alkali be sleeping on my brand new sofa bed? Hell no. He'll be sleeping on the floor because I don't want to have to buy another sofa bed having just gotten this one. Munitia Blast Paul. Kage, I've been meaning to ask, how often do you get propositioned at cons? Oh, Munitia, let me tell you. How often do I get propositioned at cons? Never. Don't ever get old. You won't like what happens. It's usually right around now when I am enjoying my vodka and orange and I have an audience, even if it's only one poor son of a bitch in a bar who just wishes I would go away. Whether it is a small crowd of Hungarian furs in Budapest at a little place, a little bar called Galagonia, or whether it is at friends' houses. Every year I do this. And every year I return to a particular story. You see, many of you know that I did spend many years in emergency services. I was a volunteer with the Red Cross before I found out that they are an organized crime family. I served as the appointed emergency management coordinator for the borough of Malvern, Pennsylvania for 13 years. I am not in an official capacity now, but once you have served in that role, it never leaves you. You are always thinking emergency management. Maybe that's why I'm a convention chairman, because that pretty much is emergency management. I want to introduce you virtually to a fellow sorry, that's a Bay about the jumper cables. I'll contact her in a little bit. I'm going to bring the picture up on my cellular communication device because I remembered I have that name that I know Very, very well. Rick Rescorla. If you've heard this story before, you can maybe you go get a Pepsi or something. I don't know. Yeah, there we are. I'll hold this up to the camera. Actually, I've got the wrong. Sorry, I don't have my camera on the screen. There we go. All right, let me hold this up there. That's a terrible, terrible picture. I'll tell you what. Look it up on your own goddamn phone. Now I'm going to tell you his story. It is indeed his story. I just tell it. Rick Rescorla was a Cornishman. I would say Englishman, but I think that he would prefer I say Cornishman. He was from Cornwall. He did serve in the military, and I believe that was 1st Cavalry. Mio, very, very observant of you. Vietnam veteran. He took a job as security chief at, what are they called now? The problem with talking about companies is they keep changing names, and I want to give you the right name. What were they then? All right, doesn't matter. Oh, yes, it was Morgan Stanley at the time. They were Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, blah, 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 blah. He took a job as director of security from Morgan Stanley. They were in the South Tower of the World Trade Center, and they occupied at least 20 floors, maybe 30. Morgan Stanley was a very, very large investment company, so they had a significant presence in the World Trade Center. Some of you folk may not know, you may not realize that the events of that evening of September in 2001 were not the first time somebody tried that kind of shit. Back in the early 1990s, they packed a Ryder truck with explosives, parked it in the parking garage under one of the towers, and detonated it. They thought they could bring the tower down that way. That effort failed. But Rescorla was the security chief at Morgan Stanley, and he was horrified that it took hours to evacuate that tower. And I don't mean 2-3 hours, I mean 6, 7, 8 hours, an entire day before the last person got out of that tower. He was beside himself, and I can feel his pain. As an emergency management guy, that would have upset me too. And he told his superiors, that is not acceptable. We need to be able to empty this building within an hour if something like this happens again. So he implemented quarterly evacuation drills. He would pull the alarm on the many floors of Morgan Stanley. And then he would show up with a bullhorn and he would order all 2,000 employees of Morgan Stanley to go down the stairs, 70 flights of stairs down to the street. 4 times a year, this Cornish asshole would show up and say, that's it, out. He's got a stopwatch with his bullhorn. Everybody out. Go down the stairs, 70 flights down. And he was merciless. He would search. People would try to hide. They'd hide under their desks. They'd like shutter themselves in offices. He would ferret them out. Even the top executives, he would say, "That's it, you're gone." People complained. He had human resources, complaints out the wazoo. This guy is a dick. Make him stop doing this. But he wouldn't. He would not relent. He did this 4 times a year for nearly 10 years. And then, when an aircraft struck the other tower, the announcement came on the PA system: "Everybody is fine in this tower. Stay where you are." Rescorla saw it another way. He pulled the alarm. Even though the officials said, "Stay put," he pulled the alarm and he ordered everyone out of that tower. The aircraft struck while the evacuation was going on. There is a photograph, you can find it online. Somebody snapped a photo of Rick Rescorla standing in the stairwell with his bullhorn that they all hated, urging people down the stairs. They had done this 4 times a year for 10 years. But of the more than 2,000 employees of Morgan Stanley, all but 6 survived. They all got out because they knew how to get out. They'd been drilled. It was now part of their DNA. They could get out of that building with their eyes closed, and now they had to. Just about 2,000 lives were saved because they knew how to get out. Of those 6, one of them was Rescorla. The last anyone saw of him, he was heading up the stairs. And they shouted at him, "Rick, you have to get out." And he was heard to say, "Not until I'm sure everybody else is out." His body was never found. But there's 2,000 people alive today that are his legacy. So this is why I tell people, when the fire alarm goes off and you're in the middle of writing something or you're on a phone call, get out, do your thing. Find your nearest exit. Go outside. Don't stop to get your coat. Don't pick up your purse or your wallet or anything. Just fucking leave. We do those drills for a reason. I've told that story at fire stations and at 911 memorials. I ventured a few years ago very hesitantly to send an email to Rick Rescorla's widow. Wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to say, but what I said was I am telling people this story in the earnest hope that one person somewhere will pay heed. And when the alarm goes off, they'll get out. She wrote back a very, very kindly note of appreciation for my efforts. And she agreed that if in telling this story, if just one person takes heed and is able to get out when it's necessary, then, well, then the telling of the story will not have been in vain. So yeah, that's the message. When the fire alarm goes off, when the siren sounds, when the klaxons hit, just do the thing. Duck and cover, crawl out, go out the nearest exit, go to your meeting point. It's a drill. Yay, hooray, wonderful, it's a drill. Let's do it again next quarter. Yay, hooray. One of these days it'll be real. I hope it's not, but it might be. One of these days it'll be real. And if you're standing outside able to remember this little conversation and reflect on it, then my job and Mr. Rescorla's has been accomplished. So yes, you can go ahead and look it up. You can read about him. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to. He was a remarkable fellow. People say that as they were filing down the stairs, he was trying to inspire them. He was singing "Men of Harlech," which is a wonderful Welsh song, on his megaphone to try to keep him moving, keep the pace going. What other folks are saying? Merrick says, he saved a lot of people. Yes, he did. That's his legacy. 2,000 lives still around today to tell you the story. I'm sure that everyone would prefer that he's here to tell the story himself, but since he's not, at least they can. You know, we have fire drills at my workplace, and they always announce them. They say, we're going to have a fire drill today at 11. And what happens? At 10:59, everybody's lined up at the exit with their coats on and their purses and briefcases and their car keys in their hands. And then when the alarm goes off, they just file out the door. I have long been a proponent of unannounced fire drills. And the company says, oh, we're a science company. You're in a laboratory. That could be dangerous. Okay, you got me there. If you've got acid and base and you're about to mix them together and the fire alarm goes off, is it more dangerous to practice that or to wait until it happens? Now, I'm still a proponent of unannounced drills. One of these days, I hope I can do what Rescorla did. When the alarm goes off, start chasing people out of the building, crack the whip behind them. No, you can't go back for your coat. No, you can't go back to your desk to grab your computer. Get the hell out. Oneida. My workplace has been having many false flags, unfortunately, because people use the clearly marked fire exit door. So unfortunately, I've been a smidge desensitized. That I have no answer for. Other than to indicate that there are certain things you could coat that fire exit push bar with that will make these people realize they should not have touched it. Does the word capsaicin mean anything to you? I was just telling Ronnie. Ronnie was visiting me. We attended Euroferns together this past week, and I believe I was telling him about my experiences at college, at Ursinus College in Pennsylvania. It's in a town appropriately called Collegeville. Yay! Collegeville, because there's nothing there except the college. The town's volunteer fire siren is on the roof of Thaler Hall of Science. Grand old building that I haunted in my youth. Thaler Hall, that's where I learned chemistry. But the fire siren is on the roof, and when there was a call and you were in the lecture hall, you would know it. The siren had two particular codes. One single rise and fall was a rescue. That would let the firefighters know the rescue unit only is what is needed. 5 cycles was a full company call. That meant a structure fire. They're going to need the ladder, they're going to need the pumper. We had a number of volunteer firemen who were students. And it always was very, very moving to me. Sitting in one of old Ron Hess's chemistry lectures, Dr. Hess would be in the middle of teaching us about Grignard reactions, and you would hear this loud click as the like old ancient knife edge electrical contacts went together, and then you would start up, and Dr. Hess would just stop because it would become deafening, this wail, and then it would come down. And when it got to the bottom, he would pick up his chalk and start continuing the lecture, and then it would go back up, and he would just roll his eyes because he knew he had 4 more cycles to go. But every time that siren went off, when you first heard that click of the contacts, even before the siren started powering up, 4 or 5 stalwart young students would jump up out of their seats and go charging for the exit. And you knew in your heart of hearts that at least one of them was a fireman. I recall the singular instance when I had cause to pull a fire alarm. I was working at an unnamed chemical company in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, and I was in the laboratory with one of my colleagues, and we couldn't help noticing that it was getting kind of blurry in there. In fact, it was almost like there was a light blue-gray fog was starting to form from the ceiling and coming down. And we had to have a conference. This is something I'm still ashamed of to this day, because I'm Mr. Emergency Man, right? We actually had to have sort of a meeting between her, myself, and a third scientist. Okay, is this smoke? This really does look like smoke. This is unusual because whatever this material is, that does appear to be smoke, but we haven't analyzed it, so we can't be certain that it is actually smoke, but it does have all the properties of smoke, is now growing increasingly dense in our laboratory. What should we do? We took a vote. Should we pull the alarm? Okay, all right. Show of hands. Do you think at this point we should? Okay. All in favor. Okay, all opposed. Okay, it's unanimous. We should pull the alarm. So we ran to the alarm pull box, which was by the door, and then we were like, okay, which Jane, do you want to do it? Roy? Okay, one of us has to pull it. Okay. All right. Okay, right. Okay, 1, 2, 3. No, okay, 1, 2, 3. No. At that point, it's okay. Fuck it. Yank the alarm down, and nothing. We're sitting there looking at each other. We're standing by the exit door. We have pulled the alarm and nothing happened. So the three of us, including Mr. Emergency Management Man, ran back through the smoke-filled laboratory to find another alarm pull box to pull the alarm. Nobody told us. I don't know if anybody even knew that when that alarm is pulled, there is a 15-second delay. Why? I don't know. I didn't design it. I wouldn't design it that way. But apparently when you pull that damn thing, there's a 15-second delay. Here we are groping around in the smoke looking for another alarm pull. And that's when the sirens went off. And we made our way back to the exit. Stupid, I know. We all went outside. And we're standing outside. We could hear the local fire station on its way. We heard the sirens, the volunteer siren go off. And then we heard the trucks coming. Because when an alarm is struck at a chemical plant, everybody shows up. It turned out, the safety guy came up to us with one of his assistants who was looking extremely guilty. Here's what had happened. The assistant had become curious about the airflow in the building. We didn't have any airflow studies done. If we're on the second floor and we are trying to ventilate the second floor, where does it go and everything? So he decided he was going to put it to the test. He set off a smoke grenade in one of the laboratories on the second floor to see where the smoke went. Well, it turns out it goes to the laboratory on the first floor. That's where we were, and that's what had happened. And Scarlett Young says that was a very long-ass 15 seconds. Munitia blast party. Did you ever see that old-timey picture of the fire alarm that grabs a person's hand and hold them there when they pull it? Munitia, I really hope that's a joke. Because, okay. No. Just fuck no. Goddamn no. If you have a link, I don't want to see that. That's just a fucking nightmare. Oh, I see. Designed to trap pranksters. You know what? I would rather let 10,000 pranksters go than to have an honest person burn alive in a fire because they couldn't get out having pulled the alarm. Jesus Christ. Oh, Abel is heading out. Thank you for joining me tonight, Abel, so that I wasn't drinking alone. Very kind of you. Some of you who have been watching me do the face noises for a long time may know this story. It's a very old story. But I think it's apropos for tonight. I used to work at a facility in Arkansas, the National Center for Toxicological Research. It's a U.S. Food and Drug Administration facility. I was in a chemistry lab, which in the 1990s was a chemistry lab, but 20 years before that, that had been a laboratory involved with germ warfare. I bet you thought that the United States never engaged in such a thing. That's not true. The United States had an active biological warfare program. In fact, we were busily developing bioweapons to use on North Vietnam. Fortunately, the conflict came to an end before that particular study came to its conclusion. But that facility in Arkansas is where that research is being conducted. My laboratory was an ordinary laboratory. One thing I always thought was kind of odd was over the door there was a big rusty metal box that had just a metal arm sticking out from it, likewise covered with rust and cobwebs and birds' nests and dusts and things like that. I never thought much about it. I was working in my hood one day. I was working with ether, diethyl ether, particularly volatile and ungodly flammable compound. But, if you treat it with respect, you don't have to worry about it. I was being not disrespectful to the ether, but I was being a little footloose and fancy-free with her virtues, shall we say. I had it on a hot plate. The hot plate was up a little hotter than it probably should have been, but I was in a hurry. And I was transferring some ether with a pipette. A drop of ether fell from the pipette, hit the hot plate. And the entire hood where I was working, that suction box where chemists work, the entire thing just went up. 1 second I'm doing my reaction. The next second I am looking at a veritable wall of fire in front of me. I fortunately have very, very good reflexes. I jumped back. I was wearing gloves, and I noticed both of my gloves were on fire. I quickly got those off. And I turned around. Next to that entrance was a fire extinguisher that was as big as I was. The goddamn thing was like 5.5 feet tall and this big around. It's designed to put out aircraft fires. And I was getting ready to put the fire out with this thing when my boss, Dwight, good old Dwight, by the way, Dwight has passed away. Those of you who remember this old story, Dwight left us several years ago. Here's to you, Dwight. This fat, old, jolly, magnificent, lovable Oklahoman. Dwight came running and he said, "Shoot it!" Well, the cone on this thing was, on this fire extinguisher was about 4 feet long. And when I turned around, the fire had sort of died down to just this little conflagration. And I said, "Dwight, it's not sporting." And you say, would you just shoot the goddamn thing? I'm getting ready to, and I look to the extinguisher. It says, stand back 50 feet. Lab's only 15 feet across. So I went up and I thought, maybe I can blow it. That didn't work. And Dwight said, for fuck's sake, just shoot the son of a bitch. So I stood back as far as I could and I took aim and the fire went out. That would have been the end of it. But from 30 years previous, a heat sensor deep in that hood that nobody remembered was there was tripped. And all of a sudden, red lights started flashing all throughout the building and bah, 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 bah. And I heard a grinding sound, and I looked up. That big metal box over the door, that rusty arm connected to nothing, was moving like this. And I realized that automated system was designed so that if a fire was detected, that door would close. And if you were in that room, tough shit, babe, because they didn't want what was in that room getting out. But apparently there were also ancient protocols written down. Because when the fire alarm went off in that building, it started a chain reaction. It struck what we call a general alarm. You've heard of a 3-alarm, 4-alarm, 5-alarm fire. A general alarm is any available piece of equipment within the sound of our voice. A general alarm was struck, and every piece of fire equipment in central Arkansas started to converge on that site. I cannot begin to count the number of fire engines, the number of pumpers, ladders, rescue units, ambulances, dozens of each. The parking lot was just crammed full. And they all came running up. And here was me in the middle of it all. Of course, the order to stand down was given, thankfully. It took the better part of an hour to clear the parking lot of all that equipment. And then the safety guy came in. Oh, we have to have the Inquisition now, yeah. Safety guy came in. He wanted to know what happened. I told him what happened. And this is my favorite part of any safety inquest. How will we assure this will not happen again? And my answer was, I won't do it again. To this day, I think that is still on the books down at NCTR in Arkansas. Okay, Marek says you should have used the... Okay, let me explain something. Here we go. Basically, what I had... Imagine this without the lid. What I had was a beaker that was filled with diethyl ether on a hot plate that I was boiling off, and this curtain of fire around it. By the time I got to the extinguisher, the curtain of fire was gone. This thing was just like burning off the top. If I had shot it with that extreme high pressure extinguisher, it would have knocked this over, and I would have then had what we call a running fire. If you don't know what a running fire is, you don't want to. That is the one thing every chemist fears, is a running fire. You've got solvent flowing and the fire is following it. So I didn't want to do that. I'm going to fill this up again, but I'm going to need more ice. And after I get the ice, I'm going to tell you how I discovered that where I was working had been a germ warfare facility. Pardon me just a moment. On this solemn anniversary, I don't think I'm the only one to sit here and reflect how governments spend so much money, so much time, so much resources, so much energy for the sole purpose of causing grief and suffering to others. Do you notice they don't seem to spend a fraction of that energy to relieve the suffering of people who stand under their own flag? No, no, no. We have to spend our energies to destroy the happiness of somebody who stands under a different flag. And those who stand under our flag, well, depending on what your political party is, well, if you're not happy, it's your own damn fault. You need to work harder. You need to be more dedicated. You don't need a handout from the government. By the way, if you're stumbling across this stream for whatever the hell reason and you don't know who I am what you might call a libtard. That is used as a pejorative term, but you know what? I embrace it because anybody out there who wants to call me a libtard is automatically a troglodyte by definition in my universe. Munisha says, is there actually a difference between flammable and inflammable? Yes, there is. It's 2 letters. I've been asked, what am I drinking? My traditional September 11th Remembrance Cocktail. Absolute Mandarin and orange juice, the strongest screwdriver that the bartender at the Flying Pig Saloon in Malvern, Pennsylvania can make on that warm Tuesday evening 22 years ago. I love history. I like what a good friend of mine once referred to as modern ruins. It's a fascination for me. Abandoned places. It just is a draw that I cannot fully explain. I guess it is accurate to say that I see ghosts. I don't mean you ectoplasm, your spirits, ghosts. No, my imagination is sufficient when I see an old foundation or what's left of a collapsed factory, or even an old house where the floors have caved in, there are no windows. I can see in my mind's eye back when people worked there, when it was full of life. When I look at that old house where the windows are gone, where the floors have caved in, and the roof is half collapsed, I can look at that in my mind's eye. I can see 50, 60, 70 years ago, Thanksgiving dinners downstairs there in what used to be the dining room, the Christmas tree, the kids coming home from school. Those are the kinds of ghosts I see. That's the fascination with modern ruins for me. I was exploring with Zydex Squeaky Pony. You may know him. Old friend of mine. We were exploring an old industrial facility in the city of Norristown in Pennsylvania. Absolutely captivating place. We were looking at we could see where the old machinery had been. Some of the machinery was still there. For some reason, in the courtyard behind the main building, there was the remains of a 1970s vintage sports car. It would have been in good shape, but time had ravaged it. Was this the owner of the factory had parked it there? We don't know. But we were so enamored of this. We went over every single inch of it. And when we got back to my place, we had to look it up. We went to the good old Googles and we looked it up. What was this place? Can we get some photos that can help us fill in those ghosts that we see? We found it. We found the name of the place, and we started looking it up on Google. The first 25 hits all contained the word Superfund. Yeah. If you're going to go exploring abandoned industrial sites, I strongly recommend wearing very, very thick boots and gloves. But anyway, working at this facility in Arkansas, Dwight always told me, don't go into any places that are sealed. Well, of course, I'm naturally going to do exactly as he says. If he says, don't go to these places, I'm not going to go there, because what could possibly be there that would be of interest? I poked around, and one place that absolutely seized my imagination was like a shed, almost built like an addition onto one of the buildings. Government buildings, 1960s vintage, and then just this concrete box on the outside. And on the inside, where that concrete box was a massive steel door that had a big hasp with a padlock on it. And Dwight said not to go into any places that are sealed. But if I could pry that hasp out of the wall with nothing more than, a hardware store crowbar, that's not really sealed, is it? I mean, they're not serious. That's not sealed. If I can easily pull that hasp out of the wall, that's not sealed. So I figured that was perfectly legal. So when that door creaked open, there was an old light switch on the wall, and I clicked it on. These old, dust-covered, incandescent bulbs with the little cages around them lit up. I was expecting a room. It wasn't a room. It was a ramp that went down and then turned and continued going down. This was a descent. Where that concrete block was not a room. This was a descent. So I slipped in and I went down. I don't recall how many cycles I made, but it must have been several stories underground, because there were a lot of them. I got to the bottom. And what I encountered was a big oval portal with the door standing open, and what was left of a rotted rubber gasket around it. And next to it was a big red button. It doesn't take a big stretch of the imagination to know what this was. This was a containment door. It had that same box over it with the arm, that if something got out, you punch that red button, this door closes, that rubber gasket inflates, everything's kept inside. I stepped through, and I found myself in this little, maybe 6 foot by 6 foot square room. There was a big window here, and a row of swage lock fittings. Look up swage lock. I don't feel like describing it to you. And I found a light switch, and I clicked it on, and these old time lights came on. I found myself looking through this window at a room that literally stretched to the vanishing point. It was so long, and it was filled with glove boxes, a glove box for you non-scientists. That big plexiglass clear box with the gloves in it, that the scientist would like put his hands in the gloves and be able to manipulate shit. There were scores of places these glove boxes just kept on going. We didn't have cameras on our phones. We didn't have phones back then, for shit's sake. I just wish I could have gotten a picture. My God, I wish I could convey to you what I have in my memory. Just this, like, Indiana Jones looking infinite room with the infinite glove boxes going by. And to the right, there was another one of these portals with the rotted rubber gaskets and the big red button. And I stepped through it. I went about 5 feet and I came across a brick wall. The corridor went in about 5 feet and then it was bricked up. That's sealed. So I went back up, put the hasp back in the wall where I'd found it, and I went to find Dwight. Good old Dwight, sitting in his chair in his office with his imaginary cigarette. Government facility, you can't smoke inside, but Dwight always had his imaginary cigarette. He'd just sit there like that. And he'd say, That was Dwight. I went in and I found him in his office. I said, "Say, Dwight, let me ask you, you've been here a long time. Let me ask you something. I was talking to one of the guys on the loading dock, and he said that somewhere under this facility there's like a laboratory with like a bunch of glove boxes in it and such. He couldn't tell me anymore, but I thought I'd ask you about it." Dwight leaned back in his chair. The chair went creak. He leaned back in his chair. He said, "You've been poking around where I told you not to, ain't you?" I said, I am. How could you? I am. And he said, "Shut up. Sit down. Shut up. I'll tell you." So I sat down and I shut up and he told me. That was the biowarfare lab that I had found. That particular program that the benevolent, freedom-loving United States government had set up was designed to develop a super strain of malaria. They were going to inoculate mosquitoes with this super malaria and drop it on North Vietnam with the intention of starting a plague which would prevent the North Vietnamese from being able to mount any effective military operation. Dwight then took me on a tour. He took me to a room that was over top of the other end of these glove boxes. And there was this big thing, looked like a torpedo the size of a room. It had a cutout, and inside was a tiny little office area, a little desk, and more of these swage locks. Swage lock, by the way, is where you can connect up a hose for oxygen. You go in and now you are connected with your oxygen. And this was right next to these elevators that came up from below. And he explained to me that they would put a biotechnician into this giant torpedo. They would put a metal hatch on and weld it shut. They would literally weld this person inside. The mosquitoes would then be transferred to the ordnance. In other words, the mosquitoes would be loaded into bombs in this contained unit. And when it was finished, they would take a cutting torch and then cut the wall open and allow the technician out. That seems a rather convoluted procedure. Why not just have a door? We're talking about a potentially catastrophic, virulent bioweapon inside here. They would seal the technician inside, and the technician would do his work. And if the technician fucked up and something got loose, it would be contained. And what about the technician? The cylinder is sealed. If something got loose, they just wouldn't open it. I want you to digest that for a moment. The technician is put in there, and if something happened, they just wouldn't open it. Is there a moral difference between that and a fellow that convinces young men to fly aircraft into buildings filled with civilians? We like to believe that we're the good guys and the other guys are the bad guys. That's how the world works, Yay, the Lone Ranger with his white hat and the bad guy, Black Bart, with his black hat. But here's what it boils down to in my overly simplistic view of the universe. If your aim is to pull another person out of misery or to spare their lives, then yours is the kingdom of heaven. If your stated aim today is to destroy the life or happiness of another human being, then hell's waiting for you. That's the gospel according to Kage. Because I'm not an overly religious person. I am not the kind of person who's going to point to supernatural forces. Oh, this God, this force, this whatever. I do believe in the spirit of mankind, the spirit of humanity, which is a spirit of self-direction. And I think that really it is extremely simple. If your goal today is to make somebody else miserable, then I wish you all of the torments of hell, including those that I can't even begin to imagine. If your goal this morning, when you woke up, was to spare someone else from pain or suffering, or to offer even in the smallest degree some comfort to another human being, then yours is the kingdom of heaven. I don't think I invented that. I think that's been what all of these religious writings have been trying to say since time immemorial. Muhammad, Jesus, Josephus the leper of Corinth, Shecky the bookie from the South Bronx. It's all the same. If you're looking to fuck up somebody else's day, then fuck you. If you're looking to make somebody else's day better, well then, let's join together and raise a glass and maybe, just maybe, after tens of thousands of years of civilization and progress, just maybe, we are at the point now where those who want to alleviate the suffering of the person next to them might just be in the majority. I hope it, I desire it, but I'm not going to bet on it. Positive Tiger Gamer. Comfort those who need the comfort of the world. Ignore those who don't seem good to care. Actually, that's what I was trying to say there. Thank you, Posy. May I call you Posy? Okay, Posy. I hope that's okay. I'll call you Posy. And I will. I'll paraphrase Fred Rogers. I hope the kids still remember Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers. I'm talking about Mr. Rogers. A wonderful man. Was he a perfect man? By no means. Was he a flawed man? Absolutely. Was he a man who earnestly wanted to bring about a better world? Absolutely. Mr. Rogers, when dreadful things happened on his show, he used to tell the children in days when the news was filled with images of Vietnamese villages being firebombed and natural disasters happening and assassinations. Mr. Rogers, God bless his soul, taught children on his show because he knew these children were confused, they were scared, they saw these images, they didn't know what to make of them, they were conflicted. And he taught these children, look for the helpers. I'll share that with you now if you didn't know that. Look for the helpers. You see this street scene. A bomb goes off. Fire, flames, wreckage, bodies, body parts flying everywhere. What a horror for a child to see. He told them, look for the helpers. Look for that one person who is running into the smoke and flames to try to pull a survivor out. Look for the person who is doing their damnedest to put out the fire. Look for the person who is picking up a stricken survivor and embracing them. Because in the end, that's the cream of humanity right there. That is what humanity means, the helpers. And I guess after all the booze and the silliness and the, I am Uncle Kage doing shit on camera, I guess that's the theme of tonight's impromptu stream. The world's going to shit. Nobody can deny that. It is literally burning down around us. And it is very, very easy to lose hope. It is very, very easy to give in to despair and to say, this is the end. But look for the helpers. You'll see them in any one of these news clips. Look for the person that runs toward the danger. Look for the person that is there to catch the one who's falling. Look to the person who, not knowing what else to do, will drape a blanket around the shoulders of a suffering victim and tell them, I'm here for you. Because in those people, my friends, lies the future of the human race. As Mr. Rogers said, look to the helpers. Let us return now to the genesis of this strange little broadcast I've done tonight. A sad man who was stricken by events 22 years ago and still suffers the trauma, still has the bad dreams from it, and has invited you, my very, very dear and understanding audience, to join me as I do my damnedest to drown those sorrows. We can look at those horrible images from 22 years ago, or from 70 years ago, or from 95 years ago, or from 126 years ago. Whatever trauma has afflicted us, look at those images, and you will always see the helpers. These are the enduring images from September 11th. We watched the towers collapse. We saw the smoke filling the streets. We saw people running. We saw panic. We saw terror. But we saw bagel shop owners opening their doors and ushering people inside. Come in, get out. Sheltering them when that blast of smoke and debris was coming. We saw firefighters rushing to the site, desperate to try to find just one survivor. We saw random people on the streets gathering survivors into their arms and hugging them. People they don't know, people they have never seen before, just embracing them and saying, I know, I'm here. We saw the people of Gander in Newfoundland who threw open their homes for these flights that couldn't land in the United States because all of the airports were closed. These aircraft in the sky, where do they go? They wound up at this tiny, remote, forgotten airport in Newfoundland, in Canada, of all places, and hundreds of passengers disembarking in a foreign country. They don't know what's going on. They are stricken, they're terrified, they're lost, they're confused. And they're met by the good people of Gander who said, come to my house. I don't have much. You can stay on my sofa. I'll take care of you until you can get home. That, to me, is the hope of humanity. Because, as we have seen, humanity has an infinite capacity to inflict shit upon the rest of humanity. But it also has an infinite capacity to take a random collection of unrelated individuals, and from that random collection to assemble a wave of humanity, of compassion, that in the end will outweigh the inhumanity that our species has dreamed up upon itself. I think I've probably done enough tonight. I was going to come up with some wonderful closing comment, but here's the bottom line. I'm an old man who was there 22 years ago. I was
an emergency management professional 22 years ago. When that shit happened, it struck me very, very hard. It traumatized me to a degree that perhaps some of you younger folks may not even be able to understand. And that's fine, because if you live the rest of your lives without understanding that kind of trauma, then I am perfectly happy. I am perfectly happy. If you will never understand that level of trauma, that's great for me. But having seen that horror, having seen that tremendous inhumanity, I have also seen hope, and I have seen humanity responding to a level that far outweighs the dreadful, deliberate attempts to rob the world of humanity. And that's what they were. Somebody tried to rob the world of humanity, and they did not succeed, because humanity rose up and demonstrated to them that we are stronger than your petty hatred will ever be. My friends, I shall leave you now. Thank you very much for keeping me company. I'll leave you only with those words of dear Mr. Rogers, wonderful man that he was. When this shit happens, look for the helpers. You'll always see them. You might have to look for them, but you will always see them. And as long as they are there, there is hope for the human race. Good night, and God bless.